He was the kind of boy no one noticed, not because he wanted to stay invisible, but because the world had already decided he was not worth looking at. His clothes were old, his shoes torn, his bag patched 100 times, and his face carried the tiredness of someone who had seen too much too soon. His name was Arjun, and every morning he walked 3 miles to reach a school where no one cared if he was there or not. The other boys laughed at him. They called him names like garbage boy and ragpicker. They joked about his father, who worked as a cleaner in the town hall. They laughed when he opened his lunchbox that had only dry bread and sometimes nothing at all. Arjun never replied. He just smiled quietly, pretending the words did not hurt, but inside every laugh burned like fire. He would look at his teacher, hoping maybe she would stop them, but she never did. She only said, "Arjun, you must work harder, or you will end up like your father." Those words cut deeper than anything else, because Arjun knew his father was a good man, poor but proud. Every evening Arjun would help his father clean the streets. The smell of garbage, the sting of dust, the tiredness in his bones, it all became part of his life. But while sweeping he would whisper to himself, "One day they will not laugh, one day they will say my name with respect, one day I will make them see." He did not know how, but he knew he had to try. So after finishing his work at night, he studied under the dim light of a street lamp. Sometimes his eyes would close from exhaustion, sometimes he would fall asleep on his books. His father would find him there, gently wake him up, and say, "Son, your hard work will not go to waste. I may not give you riches, but I will give you blessings." Arjun would smile, even though he knew blessings did not buy books or notebooks, but he also knew his father's words were the only wealth he had. The next morning he would go to school again, and again face the same laughter, the same taunts, yet something inside him had changed. He had started to turn that pain into power. One day during a class presentation, the teacher asked everyone to present an idea for a business, something that could help people. Arjun raised his hand. The class started giggling before he even spoke, but the teacher allowed him to continue. Arjun said, "I want to create a business that collects garbage and turns it into something useful, maybe recycling, maybe making electricity from it." The class exploded in laughter. The teacher smirked and said, "Arjun, dreams are good, but some dreams are too big for small people." That night Arjun went home and cried. He cried not because they laughed, but because deep down he wanted to believe his dream could be real. His father heard him and said, "If they think you are small, make your work so big that even they have to look up to see you." That became Arjun's fire. For the next few years he worked silently, no friends, no distractions. He started reading about business, recycling, waste management, innovation. He borrowed books from the library, cleaned tables in a cafe to earn money for internet time. He watched videos about entrepreneurship, learned about startups, and every night he wrote ideas in an old notebook that said on the cover, "Dream till they stop laughing." Time passed, school ended, and most of his classmates went to college with family money. Arjun could not afford college, but he refused to stop. He worked as a helper in a junkyard, sorting plastic and metal while saving every coin he could. He learned how the business worked, who bought what, and how much profit they made. He started to notice that the junkyard owner made big money selling what others. Arjun woke up before sunrise. He tied the same old shoes that had holes at the front and started walking door to door, asking people if they would let him collect their garbage. Every morning he promised to keep their surroundings clean. Some people laughed in his face, some shut their doors, but a few said yes, not because they believed in him, but because they pitied him. He did not care. Pity was still a start. He took the trash on his old bicycle and sold. The next morning Arjun found his bicycle broken and his collection gone. For a moment he felt that same pain he had felt in school, that same voice whispering, "You are too small to dream." But then he looked at the rising sun and said to himself, "If I give up today, they win again, and I lose myself." He picked up the broken parts of his bicycle and walked to work. He worked double that day by hand, carrying the waste on his shoulders. People looked at him with surprise. Some even tried to stop him, but he only smiled and said, "I started this with nothing. I can start again with even less." Months later, a local journalist saw him carrying garbage and asked why someone so young was doing this. Arjun said, "Because I see gold where others see trash." The journalist smiled and wrote an article about him titled "The Boy Who Cleans." When Arjun entered the school auditorium, everyone turned to look at him. Their laughter was gone, replaced by curiosity and a hint of guilt. The same teacher who once told him dreams are too big for small people welcomed him on stage with trembling hands. Arjun stood there for a moment, looking at the same faces that had laughed at him years ago. He took a deep breath and said, "When I was here I was told that some dreams are too big for small people, but I learned that no dream is small, only our courage is sometimes smaller." He told them about his journey, about how he turned garbage into an opportunity and pain into motivation. The students clapped, the teachers applauded, and for the first time in his life Arjun felt not revenge but peace. But that peace did not last long. A new problem was waiting for him. His investors suddenly backed out, saying the business was too risky, and demanded his money back. Arjun was left with debts, no funds, and employees who depended on him. He had two choices: give up or fight back. That night, as he sat near the same streetlight where he once studied, he opened his old note. Fancy, but it worked, and soon word started spreading across the town. People began noticing how efficient and clean his service was. His company, called Greenspark, became a small revolution in the city. He offered free waste collection for schools, hospitals, and old age homes. People started respecting him for not just earning money but helping others. Meanwhile, the same businessman who once backed out and left him in debt now wanted to invest again. Arjun smiled politely and said, "Thank you, but I prefer to invest in myself now." His calm words hit harder than any insult he could have thrown back. But behind his quiet smile there was still the memory of every laugh, every word of humiliation from those school days. Every night he cried silently. That pain became his motivation. His revenge was not loud, it was the sound of his success. One day a major company reached out to collaborate with him. They wanted to partner on a recycling project worth millions. Arjun could not believe it. He was nervous but ready. The meeting was in a grand hotel. He wore a clean suit, not expensive but neat. When he entered the conference room he froze for a moment. Sitting on the opposite side was Rohan, his old classmate, the one who used to lead the group that mocked him every day. Rohan was now a mid-level manager for the big company. When their eyes met, Rohan's smile faded instantly. He recognized Arjun immediately. Arjun simply nodded and said, "Good morning." He simply said, "I did not take revenge, I just proved them wrong." His business began expanding to other cities. He hired more workers, gave jobs to people who were once jobless, and started programs to teach children about recycling and respect. He became not just a businessman but a symbol of hope for thousands of poor kids who dreamed of changing their lives. But success brought attention, and attention brought enemies. Some local politicians tried to bribe him, others tried to block his projects, demanding money under the table, but Arjun refused. He said, "If I started with garbage and still came clean, I will stay clean forever." One night his office was attacked, his files destroyed, his trucks damaged. The police investigation went nowhere. It was clear that powerful people were involved. His employees were scared, his investors worried. Everyone told him to stop and leave the city. Arjun sat silently in his chair that night, remembering every insult, every hardship he had faced before he closed his eyes and whispered, "If I quit now, everything I endured will mean nothing." Sweat and silence. When people laugh at you, remember their laughter is just noise. You will learn to turn that noise into music. The crowd stood up clapping. Some had tears in their eyes, others were inspired. Arjun smiled humbly, knowing that the same pain that once made him weak had now made him unbreakable. That night he returned home, looked at his old notebook, the one that started it all, and whispered, "Thank you for never letting me give up." But destiny still had one more test left for him. "But I will give you blessings." Was now lying weak and pale. Arjun rushed to the hospital, held his father's hand, and said, "Everything I am today is because of you." His father smiled faintly and whispered, "I told you, son, your hard work will not go to waste. You have cleaned the city. Now keep your heart clean too." A few hours later his father closed his eyes forever, leaving behind a silence that echoed louder than any applause. Arjun stood by his father's funeral, remembering the days they cleaned streets together, the smell of dust, the cold mornings, the laughter of people around them. All those memories returned, but now there was pride mixed with pain. He promised himself that day, "I will make sure every worker like my father gets the respect he deserves." He started a new foundation under Greens Park for sanitation workers across the country, giving them fair wages, insurance, and education for their children. People began calling him the son of the streets because he never forgot where he came from. Months later, he was invited to an international conference on sustainable business. Leaders from all over the world gathered there. Arjun walked on stage dressed simply, no gold watch, no fancy suit, just confidence and truth. He spoke about his journey, how a boy mocked for his poverty turned waste into wealth, not for revenge but for respect. As he finished speaking, the audience gave him a standing ovation. Reporters asked how it felt to prove everyone wrong. Arjun smiled and said, "I did not prove them wrong, I proved my father right." The hall went silent and then exploded in applause. After the event, as he stepped outside, he noticed a familiar face standing near the exit. It was his old teacher, the same woman who once said dreams are too big for small people. She walked up slowly, tears in her eyes, and said, "I was wrong about you, Arjun. I taught you lessons, but you taught me what real education means." Arjun simply bowed and said, "We all learn in different ways, ma'am." The moment was quiet but full of power. The circle of his life had closed. He had turned every insult, every humiliation into strength. His revenge was complete, not through anger but through achievement. Years went by and the name Arjun became more than a person. It became a belief, a symbol that no dream is too small and no beginning too dirty. He had built an empire from the dust, yet he still lived with simplicity, still ate at the same roadside stall where he once counted coins to buy a cup of tea. People often asked him why he never moved to a mansion or bought expensive cars, and he always smiled and said, "Because I never built this life to escape my past, I built it to honor it." On the anniversary of his father's passing, Arjun decided to visit his old neighborhood. He walked through the same narrow lanes where children now played freely, where the smell of garbage had been replaced by the scent of fresh flowers. He saw his company trucks moving through the streets clean and bright, and the workers wearing uniforms that said Greens Park Family. He stopped near the same streetlight where he once studied. A voice would echo softly, "This is not just a story of revenge, this is the story of redemption, of pain turned into power, of a boy who was once insulted but chose to rise. Instead of hate, instead of anger, he chose hard work, and in the end his silence spoke louder than every insult ever thrown at him." And as the frame fades to black, the last line appears on screen. "They laughed at him once, now they teach their children his name."